Whoa.
We're in there.
Whoa.
We are definitely.
We're in. Do you think a way to mitigate drop stepping as much as maybe someone currently is getting lower? With your feet spread wider apart with your knees bent?
No.
No.
Okay, check this out. So, again, why do I know these drop steps so well? So, I've been training at Mission 116 in White Wright, Texas, which is like, seems to be like IDPA Mecca. There's like some savage IDPA shooters that are like the best in the world. Literally, the guy that owns the range just won Carry Optics Worlds. He is the best Carry Optic shooters in IDPA, period, in the world, right? He just won it in whenever that was, last fall. So I've been training with him quite a bit, Kevin Savage. And so, like, instead of even talking about drop steps, it's almost like a jab. It is a quick, like, I just want to get out of here.
Yeah.
So, like, it's almost like I have all the weight on my right side, and I step. It's almost like a step out. They call it a step out instead of even a drop step. That weight, I just jab it into the ground about 6 to 8 inches away from the fall line, just so that I can get momentum going the other way. And so, actually, when they do these nasty leans, their feet are actually significantly closer together than I ever anticipated. And I was like, there's no way that this is what you do. And I'm watching the dudes that are literally the best in the game. Normally in USPSA, what do? We like wide stance, feet apart, knees bent, and we shoot as much as possible from that stance. On these nasty leans, they actually bring their heels together, these dudes, and they do their leans, which you can actually see more. You should try it next time you have a nasty lean. And with that quick step out, now they're in that shooting position that we actually like, and they'll be very athletic. If you start really wide and then you step out, which is what people do in their drop step, they're way too wide, and they're not really covering any ground. They're not getting any momentum, but closer together
until
on the
third
leans.
step. You have step one,
exactly.
out, step 2 forward, and then step 3 you're actually covering ground.
Exactly. But if you go narrow, do the lean, and then you do the step out that they do, now you've opened yourself up to be that athletic sense we like, and they get out of there significantly faster. And those positions in IDPA are actually much narrower than long USPSA runs, and they get quite a bit of momentum going in just 2 or 3 steps. So I learned a lot from that little jab out instead of like a full, because when people do a drop step, they literally like put their hip all the way facing the wrong way. It just forever, and you're right, it takes 3 steps to get momentum the other way. With these little step outs, I mean, they're getting going like in 2-3 steps they're full speed. Like they're booking it. So interesting.
So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but like say you're not leaning around a position, because I see this a lot. Like you go shoot a match, someone is B, C class, like whatever. You're teaching in class, and you see people doing drop steps. Yeah. And to me, it's because they're entering into a position and their feet are super narrow,
and they don't even need to be.
Right, they're not thinking about their exit out of that position, and so whenever I land narrow, it's almost like
it's a punishment.
It feels like punishment, right? It's like it's when I push on the gun, right, on a freaking partial, like that feels like punishment to me. Like
you did that a lot this afternoon.
I did, unfortunately, I did, right? But like to me, it feels like
too soon.
You know, it's like being uppercutted, like you idiot, you did that, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, like landing into a position really wide, or not really wide, like a lot of people talk about low.
You go really wide.
A lot of people talk about low. It's like what actually is low. It's like your feet wide, knees bent.
Yeah.
Like to me, that is very, very easy to like center of gravity over the top of my feet. If my feet are wide, spread apart, knees bent, and it's really easy to get out of that position.
And I think
they're like that.
And I'll actually argue that, because I like being slightly a little bit more narrow than the super wide stance. You take a very aggressively wide stance. I like being a little bit more narrow so that I'm able to create explosivity out of that versus having a really wide stance and then having to push. And now my legs are fully extended almost, and then I'm pushing out of there with just a short versus here where I can create more push with my big muscle groups.
I would say this, and again, we just met today for the first time. I would say like his narrow is still like pretty much shoulder width or more.
It's at least shoulder width apart.
Yeah. It's not the narrow that people do.
You're like
I'm wide. You're wide. Way wider.
Yeah.
It's not the narrow that people do where they're like their feet are like under their knees and like they don't really have a lot of stability or athleticism from there. So like your narrow is still like bigger than most people. I wouldn't say better, but bigger than most. And yours is like exaggerated for sure.
Yeah. I would say like I've seen you shoot enough to where I'm like, all right, Joe moves like a cat despite where his feet are.
I'm like, you shoot pretty good despite where your feet are.
No, that's good. Yeah, and I think if you're going to error, I think wider is better than narrower. If you're going to make an error, I think narrow stances create for very poor, unathletic positions that make you go through that position just to get out. So a lot of people that stop with their feet too narrow will at least go through Joe's position or maybe through Nick's position just to get out of the position. So it's like you're standing narrow, then you go to that position, then you go. So you're like going through where they're already standing, just which I think is an error, and I think it'll cost you like a half to 3/4 of a second on every single exit. And people are like, "How did that guy beat me by 4 seconds?" Every time you enter with your feet together. Okay,
that's why I bring that up, right? Because I feel like a lot of people. Maybe some of the people, a lot of people that are going to watch this, right? Like, will enter a position and they're like, well, Joe said to put his feet like this, and Nick said to do his feet like this. But they're not really, like, they're looking at the technique, not the actual principles of an entry, which would be like feet spread wide apart, knees bent, gun up, landing softly.
Yeah.
And thinking about your next exit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so, and where are you going next?
And here's a quick caveat. When I walk a stage, I like to my entries. I pretty much know how I'm doing my entries. I don't really plan my entries so much. I do plan my exits, and that's target dependent.
Where do I need to go next?
So yes, where do I need to go? But what kind of exit is it? So this is a concept that I don't know if I heard it somewhere or if I just kind of developed it through shooting. But hard exits versus easy exits. So a hard exit is any target that I need to stay static for while
like
I'm
a piece
shooting.
of steel 20 yards. You're like, yep,
steel,
I can't exit on that. That's going to cost me.
A freaking swinger,
or those nasty partials we had today.
Yeah.
It was like this much A-zone. That was
for rifle partials.
Who set that up?
We shot them with pistols.
So if I have a hard exit, then I know, and this is something I see people mess up all the time, because they know, hey, the first step of movement is to get out of position, right? Mm-hmm. If I know I have to shoot this target and I want to leave early, okay? Especially, the A-class shooters who are starting to really focus on their movement, they're starting to push, and they want to leave early on every position. Well, there's some positions you should not be moving on. You should be completely static.
There's no lean. It's just a power step
it
out
adds
of there.
a lot of risk, like some of the targets we were shooting today. I'm guilty of it too. It was not directed at you, but maybe a little bit.
I feel like you're personally offended right now.
I feel a little offended.
Who had the most no shoots today?
Next topic.
I was faster.
But there's certain times where you need to be static shooting that target. And then there's other times where you can get away with an easy exit, which would be a 10-yard open paper or a 7-yard steal, 10-yard steal. It's a big popper, right?
Yeah.
So I like to go walking the stage. I will pick, hey, this is going to be a hard exit. I know I have to be static here because I paid for it. I paid for it in points. I paid for it in misses. I paid for it in time.
You exit, you miss. Now you have to come back a second and a half later. You're shooting again. It's horrible.
It's awful.
Yeah.
So that's something I would challenge you to do is instead of trying to really, you got to have everything. It's a whole package here. There's no one thing that's going to be the ticket, but once you have all the actual mechanics of an entry down, the technical side of it, the process, start figuring out what type of an exit you're doing. So number one, figure out where you're going to go, and number two, what kind of exit is it? Is it an easy exit or a hard exit? Can we start moving early, or do we need to stay planted to take our last shot? If that's the case, if we're staying planted, then we know just like a transition where we take the shot and start bumping the gun over, we're going to do the exact same thing where we break that shot and then we're exploding out of that position.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're going to take that shot, first shot on the target, and then we're going to take a second shot on the target as we're already moving. It's not the timing of it.
I would throw the wrench in there. And it's like, I also think that's 100% skill dependent. Because what I used to consider by the rules, this is not an exit I can leave on because that's a control target. That control target may be not as much as of a control target now as opposed to 2 years ago.
Well, and it could be
back in the day, it was like a tuxedo at 10 yards. Absolutely cannot exit. I can exit on it now.
Yeah.
So it's 100% like what through your training you're going to explore those things and go, okay, I screwed up 8 out of 10 of those. For sure, I'm not exiting on that. But I get 9 out of 10 of those. That's an exit target now.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because the game isn't going to be about shooting safe all the time. Like, you're going to take risks so long as they're like risks that make sense based on your training and your experience. Like, Yep, I cannot exit on a 20-yard popper.
Yeah.
I still can't do that. I don't know many dudes will. In fact, I know plenty of world champions because, I get to hang out with some of those guys. Like, they will take the shot. They will call their shot. They will watch the impact and watch the starter fall before they leave that exit because the risk associated with that is not, okay to take. Yeah. Like, I'm going to watch that thing start to fall.
It's faster to watch it fall than to send another shot because you missed.
I mean, if you call a bad shot, okay, maybe you send a 70 or an 80 makeup. You don't call a bad shot on a popper, that's like a second and a half. Yeah. And God forbid you actually move your feet and you have to come back. Yeah. I mean, that's like disaster factor on a stage. So, again, it's skill dependent on when, maybe this year, okay, maybe that's not an exit target or a hard exit target or whatever, but eventually maybe I can make it. A little bit more.
Next question.
Yes.
Talk about leaving a position, right?
Yeah.
I always think about techniques and principles. So leaving a position, I feel like a principle would be like shoulders are leading the direction. Mm-hmm. Whether I am crossing my feet or whether I am stepping into that direction, right?
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of the time,
this is going.
I feel like a lot of the time when people try to do, they'll go, okay, I'm doing a lead foot pivot. JJ, show me how to do a lead foot pivot.
They pick up the foot.
And then they do this,
their travel
and then
foot,
step in that direction. It's like, no,
basically
sir.
a drop step.
That is not a lead foot pivot because your shoulders are going the opposite direction.
It's not even a drop step. It's your lead foot picks up as you're shooting, and then you just step out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I've seen this.
So,
I don't do these almost ever, but I've seen these.
Some of the key things that you guys think about leaving a position. What am I doing with my feet? What am I thinking about principle-wise? And what techniques supplement those principles that I'm looking at?
So, again, it's skill dependent. One more time, what does my experience tell me that I can get away with on that target? Mm-hmm. How much risk is associated with that target? And is it worth it, me stealing 3 or 4 tenths on this exit if I might have to come back to shoot it again? Like, if it's a shooting area, is it worth me leaning out at all? What if I have a malfunction? What if I have a trigger freeze?
Yeah. Right.
Like,
right.
so
we've all seen people take a shot at steel and then go to run
and then
go,
come back
and then come back.
I did it a couple weeks ago at the Florida State match, and I've got a video to prove it, and it's so painful to watch because I shot, I think, 6 or 7 rounds of this piece of steel as I'm trying to fall out of this position.
Right.
And I ended up leaving it, and it was just painful. Why did I? That's a hard exit, and I tried to easy exit.
Dependent, like, you get a click, no bang, like something like that. Yep. Boom, click, no bang. Now I have to come back. So a lot of the times it's like, do I have any other places where I can shoot that target again? Mm-hmm. That may be a consideration. Is it a continuous shooting area where, like, okay, I leave this position, but I can take one more shot as I'm leaving? Or is it like a defined, like, am I going box to box?
Yeah.
If I'm going back to box, man, like, I might sacrifice 2 tenths on the exit to make sure that that's done before I leave. Like, I may have a little bit of shoulder, like, contribution or something like that. But, man, my feet aren't going anywhere. Like, the whole, like, pick up your foot is supposed to be safer because I can just put my foot back down. I understand what they're trying to say. But, man, like, how many people pick up the foot and also have a shoulder contribution and also have this, that, and the other? Like, before you know, you're like, you've left.
I feel like
you're gone.
It's almost like you have to have a shoulder contribution. Otherwise, your shoulders are going to go this way if you're going that way. Right? So, like, if you're going to go that way and lift a foot up and you're going to flamingo.
Right? It's just risk management. Like, is it worth it?
If you're going to flamingo, like, you're only going to flamingo for so long before you step out of that position. Yep. Otherwise, you're just leaning in the wrong direction. Which I think, at the end of the day, what you just did with your feet kind of negates the benefit. It negates the benefit because you're going to leave later.
And at the end of the day, am I going from an exit I'm still in the shooting area and I can still see that target? Or am like, once I leave, that target's gone and I can't see it ever again for the rest of the stage? Is it worth the risk? Look, it is a risky game, and we're taking risks to steal time
Non-stop.
And get the most amount of points.
Non-stop.
Right?
Yeah.
But also, like, if it's a one-day match, I've known plenty of hot dogs that can destroy a one-day match and will get slaughtered at a 3-day match.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not competitive at the top of the game right now, but I am trying to have a 2 or 3 day match that's reasonable. Like, hey, like, that's competitive. Like, you actually, like, work at this game. You're not trying to hot dog the one stage. I'm not trying to win one stage. I'm trying to be like top 10 in every stage. Like that's my goal in life.
If you can,
and
if
so
you can
risk
maintain
management,
85 to 90% on every stage.
I mean, that's my goal. Like, am I doing that yet? No, but that's what I'm moving for. Look, if I don't win one single stage and I can score like 85% plus for me right now in this game, if I can score 85% plus of the winner on most, like 95% of the stages, I will feel like I am the biggest winner at the match. I don't even care where I place. You give me 85% on like 25 out of 30 stages, 26 out of 30 stages, bro, I will be crushing the game for me right now. So, like, people need to, like, consider their goals first. And it's like, maybe your goal in life is to win a stage. Okay, well, hot dog it, bro. Like, leave every position on a popper, on one foot, in flamingo, and shoot one-handed so you can get the advantage. But I'm telling you,
let me know what that match
when
is
you
so
get,
I can sign
when
up
you
for
get,
it.
when you get to, like, 2 or 3 day matches, like, it ain't gonna work.
You know, we should do a match. We should put together a match, like a local match that has a $100 prize per stage win. So dude, everyone tries to win a stage.
You'd be surprised, like how many people are like would be thrilled to go to nationals and win a stage.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
That is not appealing to me at all because it's not going to display any kind of ability. It's going to be like I'm going to be hot dogging. It's like you go to like a level 2 or level 3 match, and you have the B class guy that wins the classifier. You've seen that? Like you go to the classifier, every GM is like happy to shoot 80% and collect the points because they have a match to think about because they're trying to win the match. And then some B class you never heard about is like 92%. It's like, wow, bro, you are amazing. And then he poops on the rest of the match. You know what I mean? So again, I'm trying.
No offense to that guy, because we are impressed
like
by
legit.
No.
Way to go, bro.
No.
But for me,
fuck
like
that guy.
where I'm at, like I'm trying to like start pushing higher in the not in classification, but rather like in placement and competitiveness. And so risk management is definitely a factor. So should you contribute to exiting? If your skill level dictates that that's probably a good idea, you should be.